A legacy isn't left, it's built with intention. It involves a degree of sacrifice, like the sacrifice of my mother. It involves a degree of unselfishness, like my friend who volunteers and gives her time. Or maybe those of you who create charitable legacies, or even just, once your family is taken care of and they have the tools and the resources that they need to then fulfill their purpose, the overflow of your blessing is not for you. You're blessed to be a blessing. The overflow of your resources, your wealth, your riches, the millions and billions that you've created, that you have to steward, are to give generously. And the beautiful thing is that when we give generously, our soul prospers. You're listening to Legacy Maker Podcast with Kristina Hess. Clear guidance for protecting your wealth, empowering your family, and creating a lasting legacy of generational impact. Legacy Maker, let's go. Estate planning is essential, but legacy planning's bigger. Estate planning answers what happens to my assets. Legacy planning answers what happens to my influence. A legacy is not left, it's built with intention. Welcome to Legacy Maker with Kristina Hess. Today's signature message: legacy planning is not estate planning. Trust me, I'm an estate planning attorney. I've been an estate planning attorney for over 16 years. Estate planning is important. You want to make sure your assets are taken care of when you're gone. But legacy planning is about leaving influence in the world after you're gone. Transfer of assets is not the same thing as transfer of meaning. So let's talk about estate planning, because I get it. Estate planning is important. It's legal planning for death and incapacity. It's about control, protection, efficiency, and reducing court involvement. No one wants their loved ones to go through probate court. It's also about incapacity planning. You want to make sure that in the event that you are incapacitated, you can avoid what we call a living probate. You've got people in place who can take care of you, and you've got legal documents in place that avoids the probate courts. Estate planning is about the 5 foundational legal documents. So you want to have those 5 things. What are they? Your revocable living trust. This is what avoids probate on your house and other important assets. Number 2, a pour-over will. You want to make sure that if you miss something or there's some account that you didn't put in the trust, it's going to tell the probate court, please pour this asset into the trust. Number 3, the durable financial power of attorney. This covers you in the event that you can't act for yourself. You need someone to file your taxes, manage your mail, your assets, things that are not funded to the trust. The durable financial power of attorney will pick up. And then we have the medical documents. Number 4 is your advanced healthcare directive. Who could speak for you medically? And what do you want? Do you want end-of-life decisions? Do you want to be kept alive artificially? We all remember that Terry Schiavo case from years ago. The HIPAA authorization. Who could speak with your doctors or access your medical records if you're not there to give consent? Or you're there, but you don't have the capacity to give consent. I've had clients where their parents were in Florida and they were in California, and the parent was in the hospital, but the doctor wouldn't give them any information about their condition because they didn't have a HIPAA release. Likewise, it happened to me. My mom was in the hospital and I called to get information, and they said she didn't list you on file. And so I said, well, I have a HIPAA release, so please fax it over. So those are the 5 legal documents. They're important. The trust, the will, the power of attorney, the healthcare directive, the HIPAA release. Those are the 5 core legal documents that everyone needs. And this is Estate Planning 101. But as I said at the beginning, we're talking today that legacy planning is so much more than just basic estate planning. Everyone needs the foundation. Yes, if you have people you love, if you have any level of assets, you need a plan. If you have accounts, a home, responsibilities, minor children, you need a plan. If you want to choose decision makers rather than leaving it to a court, you need a plan. A plan is an act of care and love. And then even once you have a plan, you want to make sure that if you set up a trust, that it gets funded so that it doesn't fail. We talk about that in some other Legacy Maker episodes. If the trust is empty, the court may still get involved and you don't avoid probate. So paper alone and documentation alone is not enough. Implementation matters. Probate can be slow, public, and expensive, and a properly funded trust can avoid that. So I think you get the story. Estate planning is important. Estate planning is important. It can support your legacy, but it's not your whole legacy. It's necessary, but legacy planning asks a deeper question. What will continue on because you lived? Legacy planning can protect your legacy. It can document your legacy, but it cannot automatically create your legacy. Estate planning is the vehicle. Legacy is the destination. So I had a client that came in and they did their foundational estate planning documents. And we set up the 5 legal documents and they had everything in place. And that's good legal planning. But then the deeper questions come and the legacy questions. What do you want to continue on when you're gone? Not just who gets what or how the assets are passed, but what is the impact that you want to leave? What's the legacy? And for that particular client, they really cared about charity. They wanted to set up a private foundation and a charitable legacy. And they also wanted to set up dynasty or multi-generational trusts for their children and grandchildren and future generations. And so we were able to embark on the bigger picture. They also recorded some love letters and videos, and it became a multi-generational mission of what their values were, their wisdom, their life lessons. There were things that were so much more than the money. I know that in some cultures, I remember when I was studying abroad in Argentina when I was in college, and one of the friends that I met down there said in their culture that they had a saying that you should have a child write a book and plant a tree. And the logic behind that is you want to leave something behind after you're gone. You want to give life, give wisdom, and give an investment into the future. And it's a really beautiful thing. And I think for a lot of people, legacy involves many different things. So you have tangible assets. And this is really your financial legacy, your charitable legacy. And this is where legal planning can have a very important role because your trust, your estate planning, that's going to deal with your financial legacy. But then setting things up with your meaning and your purpose and your values can take your estate planning to a whole nother level. It can take it to a whole nother level of being a legacy maker. And your tangible assets may also involve a charitable legacy, what you're leaving to different charities, or maybe you and your family want to create a family foundation, a private foundation, where then successive generations can be involved in the philanthropy. They can learn how to be on a board of directors, how to accept grants, applications. There's a lot of lessons that can be learned. And before that, I know a lot of families will say, okay, go do some research, identify some charitable causes that you believe in, and then come back to us with a proposal why you think we should give some money to this charity and how it's going to make the world a better place. Is it going to help the poor, the orphaned, the widows, the conservation, water in Africa, your local church or synagogue? How is this going to benefit people? So then we also want to involve the core team. So your A team is your estate planning attorney, your CPA, and your wealth advisor. Now this is the fun part. This is the fun part to me because this is where I feel the tangible assets are certainly important. But I can honestly say from my own personal experience when my father passed away, and yes, granted, he died suddenly on a fishing boat in Alaska at the age of 66. He was far too young, in my opinion, and he really wanted to leave a legacy. He believed in the proverb that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. He wanted to do that, set up generational wealth for the next generation, leave assets to be a good and righteous person. But he died suddenly before he got to finish what he started. And so in his case, yes, he had a trust. Yes, he had an estate plan, and that was all amazing. But the most significant legacy that he left was intangible. So the intangible legacy can be an inspirational legacy. It can be a contribution legacy. And this could involve faith, integrity, courage, things like that. And I know in my dad's situation, his inspirational and contribution legacy was far more valuable than the trust and the assets that he left behind. Why? Because I started playing soccer when I was 5. For example, he coached me in soccer. He was a coach all the way up until my high school years. And then even when I went off to college, he continued to coach locally for a few more years. He was an amazing coach, very inspirational, very encouraging. He taught me the power of visualization. He taught me the power of being a positive Pygmalion. The first thing I did was I entered a speech contest in 9th grade, and he gave me one of the articles he had written from Positive Psychology. And so his influence was so robust and powerful with his inspiration. He was a man of great faith. He was a man that mentored and coached others. He invested in relationships and people. And so his legacy, the intangible legacy, was far more valuable. And if you had said to me, you could have $10 million, or you could have the inspiration and contribution legacy that your father left you, hands down, I would take the inspiration and contribution, because it goes to identity of who I am. He built and forged identity in me. He built and forged vision in me. And that is so much more powerful and has carried me through to be the woman that I am today, because of the foundational roots that were established with faith, coaching, vision, mentorship, and those types of inspiration. So it was very powerful. And so the thing is people remember how you made them feel and what you helped them become. So much more than maybe the money that you left behind. Statistics will bear this out. And of course, a lot of you may be familiar with the statistics that 90% of your material wealth, your tangible assets, are gone by the 3rd generation. Over 70% is gone by generation 2. So what happens a lot of times is generation 1 builds wealth. They build resources. They went from maybe nothing to tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even billion-dollar estates. And depending upon the stewardship, depending upon the legal structures, and depending upon the values and identity that is passed on to the next generation, they're either going to build upon what their parents or the wealth creator built in generation 1, or they're going to squander it. And too often, I'm sure we all have seen it in this day and age, there's a very strong sense of entitlement, and I deserve this, or I should have this. And then sometimes, I know I've seen this in my own family, where parents will enable their children. And some people do it just, I think, maybe out of misguided love. Other people might do it because life was so hard for them, and they struggled and they struggled, and it was hard and it was painful. And then they overcame, and then they built wealth. They went to medical school. They built a business. They invested in real estate and invested in real estate, and they scraped and they were frugal, or whatever it was, but they, by their own effort and sheer magnitude of will, overcame the challenge and the struggle. And so a lot of times people who have built wealth and they're wealth creators, they then don't want their children to have that pain. They don't want them to suffer. But the reality is, it's exactly and precisely the suffering, the struggle, the hardship that forges the character in somebody to be able to sustain wealth. Because what is easily given is quickly despised. So, and I've seen it over and over, and I'm sure you've seen it with your friends or even perhaps with your family, that things that are quickly given, there's a sense of entitlement, or I don't need to work, or let's just be a trust fund baby. But nothing could be further from a real legacy, something that endures. Legacy is caught, it's not just taught. Recently, I also lost my mother. And in her situation, her modeling was different, but hers was a modeling of sacrifice because my parents actually got divorced when I was in high school. And I was raised, my dad had a PhD, my mom was a nurse and had a BSN. And I was raised from a very young age that education was extremely important. And I remember when I graduated from high school and was going to college, the divorce had just happened. It was 1989, and the my dad was in real estate, and the real estate market in California crashed. Things were not good. Things were not good. And but I was raised, no one ever told me you're going to need to save for college or you're going to need to work extra hard to get scholarships because we're not going to be able to put you through college. That was never taught to me. That mindset was never given to me. So I didn't have that mindset. The mindset that I had was you do well in school, get good grades, study hard, and you'll go to college and your parents will provide. That was how I was taught, for better or for worse. That was the message that I was raised with. And then the time came and the message suddenly changed because circumstances had changed. But my mom sacrificed. She worked 2 jobs. She worked as her her regular 9 to 5, Monday through Friday as a nurse. And then she worked as a home health care nurse on Saturday. And she did that to continue to put me through college. And so she modeled sacrifice. And that to me was the greatest gift of love, I think. And that's a powerful, powerful legacy. That she left behind was her sacrifice and her love. And then it was fast forward years later when I was starting my own practice, she was able to loan me some seed money to get started in my professional practice when I opened my estate planning firm in 2009. And this is a very powerful legacy. It's a powerful legacy of love, and her influence still shows up today because she was always there, and her love and her nurture were incredible. And you could always count on her. She was loyal, she was faithful, she was true, she was honest, she had integrity. Like, what she modeled was so powerful that it carries on. It carries on in my heart, and it carries on in the mother that I hope that I have become based on the model of the mother that she was. And this is legacy, a life that keeps speaking. Some legacies live in people more than property. Transitioning from estate planning and some examples of personal legacies that I've personally experienced. But let's talk about you and you becoming your legacy maker. What are some of the mindsets and what are some of the beliefs that I think are critical and important to really become a legacy maker? And I think the first mindset is that time is our most valuable commodity. I think that when people get to the end of their life and you ask them their regrets, it's not going to be, oh, I should have bought that car, or I should have, had 10 more houses, or bought that, $10 million property. It's the relationships. It's maybe they needed to make amends. Maybe there was a fracture with parent and child, or with siblings, or there were relationships, familial relationships that had been destroyed. And maybe there's unforgiveness, which is toxic. And so there's time is the most important commodity. And then it's also, the truth is that life is short. None of us are promised tomorrow. And how would you want your end of life to come, knowing that you had unfinished business, that you had relationships that hadn't been mended, or you had things in your heart that you had yet to fulfill? Time is the only non-renewable asset that we have. And the second mindset, I think, is that eternity is in the heart. There's a reason that we long for meaning. Eternity is in the hearts of men and women. Meaning and significance is not a luxury. Significance is a purpose. It's a calling. And so having a legacy and leaving a legacy and becoming a legacy maker is about the meaning and the purpose. What's important to you and what were you given? The third mindset is to begin with the end in mind. So this is an interesting thing that I've actually done as part of a group that I was in, a coaching group. We actually did this. We went to a cemetery and we're surrounded by gravestones. And I'm sure you've all heard that, saying that our life is in between the dash. The dash is the year that we're born, and then the dash is our life, and then the year that we die. And sitting there on a bench looking at tombstones and people's lives and what was represented on their tombstone, but you don't get the fuller picture. You don't get what the dash is. And so it's important, and I think beginning with the end in mind, which was famously in Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that you can picture your memorial service and pretend that you are a fly on the wall at your memorial service. Your life is over. You've come to the end. Who's there? What are the relationships that you have? What's the family that you created? Who are the important people in your life? What relationship did you nurture? What was your inspiration and your contribution? What are the top 3 things that you want people to say about you and your life? What did you build or create? Who did you invest in? What was your impact, your legacy? Design backwards. Get to the end of your life and design backwards. Reverse engineer the life that you want to live. It's a very powerful exercise. The 4th mindset is purpose. I've alluded to this already, but this is from more of a faith perspective. For those of you who are my Jewish friends, Catholic friends, Christian friends, LDS friends, or any others who believe in a divine creator, that the earth was created by God, there's a corollary to that. If there is in fact a divine creator and we were all created by God, the corollary to that is you were created. You're a created being. And so you were created on purpose, for a purpose. And the creator of the heavens and the earth and the universe created you with a purpose. The Psalm of David, one of the Psalms of David, says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of our creator. In Genesis says that we're created in God's image. In our image, we created them, male and female. And so there's purpose. And our book was predestined, some believe, that the things that we're supposed to do in our life was divinely created with the purpose, that the Creator created a purpose, and that there's good works that were prepared in advance for you to do. So if in fact you have a purpose, you were given gifts and talents, you were given resources, you're entrusted to steward resources, you have a purpose, you have good works, you have things that you were created to do, and you have a personhood, an identity that you were created to be. And the good news is, friends, it's not too early to get started on fulfilling your purpose. And it's not too late to redeem the time. It's not too late. And the beautiful joy is that if you ask the Creator what you were created for, I firmly believe you will get an answer. And then you can also look at your life and what you're passionate about, your gifts and talents, and how you can become of service to the world. How can you give back? How can you serve? How can you mentor? I know one of my friends, she's 80, and financially, she doesn't need to work, but she continues to work, but she also volunteers. She serves. She serves her neighborhood. She serves her neighbors. She serves the local community. She serves at her church. She serves at missions. She volunteers her time and her talents. And so you too have an opportunity of purpose and meaning, and you can discover what that is by asking some questions and listening. The final mindset is intentionality. A legacy isn't left, it's built with intention. It involves a degree of sacrifice, like the sacrifice of my mother. It involves a degree of unselfishness, like my friend who volunteers and gives her time, or maybe those of you who create charitable legacies, or even just, once your family is taken care of and they have the tools and the resources that they need to then fulfill their purpose, the overflow of your blessing is not for you. you're blessed to be a blessing. The overflow of your resources, your wealth, your riches, the millions and billions that you've created, that you have to steward, are to give generously. And the beautiful thing is that when we give generously, our soul prospers. I know one of my clients was saying he has a friend who's a billionaire, and he's told, and the best advice he gave him is, don't wait until you're dead to give to charity. Do the charitable purposes now, because not only you get to see the fruit, and there's lots of studies about the science behind all the good feelings that are produced, the biochemical feelings that are produced in you. But the beautiful thing is that when we give, our soul prospers and you feel amazing, and you get to see the beautiful impact that your money and your resources and your time and talent can have into the lives of other people. And when we begin to live beyond ourselves, and we can be unselfish and we can be sacrificial, then we truly enter into legacy. But it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by sitting on the couch watching TV. It doesn't happen by planning amazing vacations. Although those are important, you should spend time with your family. You should be intentional on planning trips with your children. You should take care of yourself and eat healthy. And yes, have some fine dining and amazing meals once in a while, but steward your body. Steward with health and walking and activities, so that when you are in your sunset years and your golden years, you can enjoy your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and you can enjoy a high quality of life, because time is a commodity, but our health is very valuable also. And so the beautiful thing is that when you live with intentionality and you begin with the end in mind, and you think about who it is that you want to be and what the impact is that you want to leave when you're gone, intentionality turns your life into a legacy of purpose and passion. And finally, as an estate planning attorney, I would be remiss if I didn't also note that legal planning and family wealth planning are a huge part of your legacy. The legal planning matters. Having the right structures in place matters. Saving taxes matters, because some people want to disinherit the IRS, quite frankly, because they think that their wealth can be better served for purposes that they define, and that you structure, you control where the resources go. You control the things that you're passionate about and believe in. So preparing heirs matter, choosing fiduciaries matter, multi-generational trusts matter. Legal planning matters a lot, because if you don't get your legal house in order, you could have an amazing legacy, but then you're going to lose money to taxes, and the next generation isn't going to have the appropriate structures in place to steward the wealth for generations to come. So this is important, and don't worry, we've got plenty of good podcast episodes on all of these topics: charitable planning, multi-generational trust, legacy planning. I'm going to do an episode on the 7 keys to generational wealth. So, wow, that's a lot. I didn't anticipate getting emotional about this topic, but I think that you can see that estate planning is the foundation and that legacy planning is the mission. And I think now that I know that when my dad died, my passion for legacy planning was born. It was in that moment that I knew that this was something that I was going to be passionate about. I didn't know that it would be a passion for the rest of my life, but it was so powerful because someone had said to me, I was in San Francisco. I was working at a big international law firm. I had 2 little kids at the time. I have 3 sons, but I had 2 at the time. They were very young. And one of my friends said to me, my dad got diagnosed with cancer initially. And one of my friends said to me, you should videotape your dad. And I thought, that's amazing. That's such a great idea. I should do that. But I never did. And so I pass on his stories to my children. They're all in their 20s now. I have passed on his stories to my children. But my youngest was 2.5 when he died. They didn't get to know him. And to me, that was a huge loss because he was a very powerful leader and larger than life person in a lot of ways. And so this passion has grown and developed and is evolving. And quite frankly, that's why I'm doing this podcast, because one, an attorney friend of mine 2 years ago said, you should do a podcast. And then I really felt the pressing of the Lord the end of last year to start it. So my message to you is do the legal planning, do the documents, do the funding, do the probate avoidance with a good estate planning attorney, but don't stop there. Don't stop there. Do family wealth retreats with your family. Invest your time, your talents, and your love where it's going to outlive you. Invest in the next generation. And we're going to have some episodes about that so that you can become a legacy maker and that your time, talents, and love will outlive you. All right. This is Kristina Hess. It's been my pleasure to bring you the Legacy Maker podcast. Until next time, subscribe, share, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for joining me today. When you're ready to take the next step, connect with us at legacymakerpodcast.com. And until next time, stay wise, stay intentional, stay a legacy maker.